Sheila catches herself. She is thinking about the night she was going to the showers. She remembers heading down, believing that she was on her way to the ladies' showers. But when she saw the urinals, she realized she was in the men's showers. Sheila was relieved that nobody was present to witness her mistake. She was about to leave when she heard Jerome's voice. Sheila sneaked over to see what he was saying. Jerome was alone, looking in the mirror, flexing his muscles and talking to himself. "All right, tonight is the night that Tiffany is going to be screaming your name. Once she has been with this, no other man will satisfy her." Then Jerome started to laugh. "Oh yes, you, my man, are a sex god." Then Jerome started flexing some more in the mirror. Sheila had to put her hand over her mouth to keep from busting out in laughter. Sheila wondered what Tiffany, another fellow officer at the precinct, would have thought if she knew her boyfriend was saying such stupid stuff. She'd put it out of her mind and got out of there before any of the other male officers could come in and see her. After all, she thought, I don't want to traumatize Jerome. He won't be able to perform. Once again, she'd had to hold her hand over her mouth to keep from laughing and left before she was caught. "Sheila?" Jerome says. Sheila snaps out of her daydream. She says, and then quickly adds, "We should get back to business." "Doc, you were saying something about Mark." Doc nods. "Okay. When Mark was over here last month, he was talking about you while he was investigating the death of one of Mickey's men." "Really?" Sheila asks. "Yeah," Doc replies. "Are you sure you want to hear this, Sheila?" Jerome asks. "I know that you're probably right, Jerome. I shouldn't, but I have to know about this. I have to know if I was right about Mark's feelings for me. Besides, this isn't going to change the situation if he tells us now or in 2 minutes. Come on, Jerome. Live a little. And it's good to have something positive come out of this whole situation." Jerome agrees with Sheila, although in his mind he knows it's just slowing them down in the investigation. But he also knows this information should cheer her up a little. Sheila has been heartbroken ever since Mark and Debbie got married. Jerome has always been there to help cheer her up, but he wonders if she isn't setting herself up to be heartbroken if Mark and Debbie don't break up now that Bullseye is back. "Mark was talking about what a great girl you are and everything," he says. "I see. He probably thinks of me as a great co-worker." Doc and Jerome look at each other as if to say, she doesn't get it. Doc replies, "Sure. Whatever you want to believe." Sheila frowns at him. "Is there more to the story?" "Yeah, there is more. You know, Jerome really is a good friend." Sheila looks at Jerome. Doc tells her how Jerome had asked Mark if he would make a move on Sheila if he and Debbie ever broke up. Sheila is shocked and happy at the same time. "So what did he say?" "He said yes, he would," Doc answers. Sheila can't speak. She is just standing there in shock. "Jerome, why didn't you tell me?" she finally asks. "Because I didn't want you to think that he was leaving his wife for you. You know they are talking about starting a family." "Yeah, but," Jerome interrupts. "Let's get back to work, Doc," he says. Doc tells them to step inside his office, which is filled with dusty books and furniture. "Please have a seat," he says. Jerome asks Doc what he has for them. Doc tells Jerome and Sheila that one of the corpses is definitely Mickey. Jerome and Sheila breathe a sigh of relief at the news. "Is there anything else?" Jerome asks. Doc shakes his head. "Number. But I do have an interesting story about decapitation." Jerome and Sheila look at each other. "Well, that is great," Sheila says. "But we have to get back to the station. Right, Jerome?" "Yeah, that's right. Let's get out of here. Let's get going." "Ah, come on, guys. Why don't you stay a while and talk?" Doc asks. Sheila and Jerome get up nervously and head toward the door. "We would love to, believe me, but we have to report back to the captain," Jerome says. Doc looks hopeful. "Well, maybe next time?" Sheila says, "Yeah, maybe next time." They leave Doc's office, close the door, and look at each other. Jerome whispers to Sheila, "Doc gives me the creeps sometimes." Sheila whispers back, "Me too." They hurry down the hallway to the door that leads outside and go out. Back at Mickey's house, Tim asks the guys if they have found anything. So far, they have nothing. Jake tells Tim the computer guys are still checking both computers. They found some encrypted files that need to be looked at. Tim tells Jake to tell the computer guys to check Sonya's computer. Why? Jake asks. There might be something on it that explains why he wanted to kill her. Jake leaves to go tell the computer guys. After an hour, Tim and Jake meet in the foyer. Well, did you finally get anything? Tim asks. Yes, Jake answers. Come with me. They walk together toward Sonya's room. I can tell you, on both Mickey's and Jolene's computers, we were able to find evidence that Mickey was setting up Kiss Up to take the fall. Oh, really? The guys and I haven't been able to find anything else in the house that could help show the gang's activities. Did you find anything in Sonya's room? Jake grins and leads him to Sonya's room. Let's just say that I found fool's gold in Mickey's and Jolene's room, and in Sonya's room I found the real gold. They enter Sonya's room. It is nice, with red and black bed sheets on a single bed and a computer on a wooden desk, with a computer chair. She also has a nice 20-inch TV, a small window with blinds, and a bookshelf with lots of books on it. Tim can see two computer experts, Dwayne and Samson, sitting on Sonya's bed inspecting her laptop. The guys show Tim what they found. It's a video of Mickey being called by his alias name, as well as a file showing all of the drug shipments Mickey has received over the years. Tim thinks that's it, but then the computer geeks and Jake show him something else, which they think is the real reason he wanted Sonya killed. On the video, they can see Mickey acting gay. He calls his wife by the name of one of his henchmen, Money. Tim's eyes open wide with this revelation. It's clear now that Mickey has been sleeping with Money. I see. Well, now we know. If his men saw this, they would overthrow him. I guess none of his men knows that he likes to play both sides of the coin, if you know what I mean. Jake and Dwayne and Samson agree. Yeah, Jake says. I mean, here it is, Mickey, a tough guy. At least that's how he portrays himself, but underneath it all, he's like that. Tim and Jake come to the conclusion that Mickey was worried that if this got out, it would discredit him. So rather than having his reputation ruined, he would get rid of the problem by killing Sonya. Tim turns to the computer experts. Why didn't he just take her computer? Dwayne tells Tim that he gets the impression that she has a lot of copies and that they are probably hidden somewhere. He thinks maybe Mickey thought it would be easier to kill her and eliminate the problem at the source. I see what you're saying, Tim says. He thought by killing her he would be covering all of his bases. I still think what he tried to do is dumb, but Mickey had always been the kind of guy that would kill you first and ask questions later. Jake and Dwayne and Samson all look at each other and nod in agreement that this is truly how Mickey operated. That is why no one had ever betrayed Mickey until now. Tim tells Jake to call the captain and tell him what they have found while he goes and tells the men to start wrapping things up. Meanwhile, Mark arrives at the hospital. He walks into Sonya's room only to find Eric, inside talking with her. Sonya and Eric notice Mark. Well, time for me to go, Eric says. He stands up, tells Sonya goodbye, and leaves. Mark asks Sonya if she knows who is lined up to take Mickey's place when he dies. Well, it's supposed to be his wife and kids, Sonya says. You don't believe that they will be in charge? Mark asks. I believe Crazy will overthrow them and take control of the Empire, Sonya says. Can he do that? Mark asks. Yes. Crazy isn't good with everybody. They respect him more than they did Mickey, Sonya replies. Mark is shocked. Do you think Mickey had any idea? I think he suspected someone, but I don't think Crazy was even on his radar, she replies. Mark ponders what Sonya said, and they begin discussing more about Crazy. Over at Mickey's house, Jake is walking to his car and gets in. Tim is already in the passenger seat, waiting on Jake. All right, man. Are you ready to go? Tim asks. Yeah, let's go to the station, Jake says, turning on the car. But Tim asks him to take him to the hospital instead. Jake asks why, and Tim gives an excuse about checking on Mark. Jake looks at Tim skeptically. I know you're full of it. I know why you are going to that hospital, and we both know it has nothing to do with Mark. Tim smiles broadly. So are you going to take me? Yeah, I'll take you, but please be careful, man. She's Crazy's girl if I've got my facts straight. I will. Jake shakes his head and starts driving toward the hospital. In the hospital room, Mark and Sonya are still talking. So basically, would you say now that Mickey is dead that Crazy will be the one to take over? Mark asks. Sonya says yes, she believes so. Mark asks why she is with a guy like Crazy. Well, I guess I should start at the beginning, Sonya says. Her eyes tear up a little. Mark hands her a tissue and she thanks him. Crazy has two brothers, a younger one you know as Cleaner and an older brother, Lance. Mark is surprised to hear this information because none of the informants ever mentioned this. I knew about the younger brother, but I didn't know about the older one. Please, go on, he says. Well, it was 2 years after I arrived that I met the boys. They could see that I was still upset over my mother's death, and none of Mickey's other kids would play with me. Lance and his brothers would play treasure hunters, tag, hide and seek, kids' games. They really made me feel comfortable about being there, she says. Sonya tells Mark how she and Lance became really close and that they were in love. But you guys were kids, Mark says. I know, but we just bonded anyway. Lance gave me this locket the night we kissed, she says. I see why you're attached to it, but if you are in love with Lance, why are you with Crazy? Sonya tells him that Lance is dead. A light bulb goes off in Mark's head. Maybe this is why none of the informants gave us information about Lance. Mark asks if she knows how he died. She tells him she found out from gossip that Mickey had Lance killed, and that Lance's brothers did the killing while Mickey took her and the rest of the family out of town. After I found that out, I wanted to get revenge, but of course I was too young. So I've been waiting patiently. I've just been collecting evidence against Mickey, and as for Lance's brothers, Crazy and Cleaner, I've been waiting for the right time to deal with them, Sonya says. Why has it taken you this long to get back at his brothers? Mark asks. Sonya sighs. I've made a horrible discovery. The problem is bigger and harder than I thought. I can't trust anybody in there except Eric, and he has problems of his own to deal with. I'm sorry, Mark says. Me too, says Tim as he walks into the room. Mark turns and looks at Tim. How long have you been there? Long enough, Tim replies. He walks over to Mark and Sonya. She yawns. I'm feeling kind of tired, she says. You should rest. Mark will return tomorrow to see you. Don't worry about anything. Everything will be fine, Tim says. He looks at the locket around Sonya's neck and picks it up. Nice locket. I can see you have taken good care of it. Sonya looks at Tim, a little confused, and thanks him. They stare at each other for a minute. Then Mark says, Tim, we had better get going. Tim and Sonya say goodbye to each other, and Tim tells Mark he will wait for him outside. Mark says his goodbyes to Sonya and then leaves as well. Mark meets Tim outside the room, and they leave the hospital together. Tim tells Mark he needs a ride, and Mark agrees to give him one. While driving, Mark tells Tim, I know Sonya and I are not related by blood, but she is my sister. Of course, Tim replies. Good. I'm glad you understand, because if you hurt her, I will kill you. Tim smiles nervously at Mark. Message received. Mark and Tim finally arrive at the police station and see Jake, Jerome, and Sheila standing outside talking. Mark and Tim park the car and walk over to them. What's going on? Mark says. Oh, nothing, Jerome replies. At that moment, Jerome looks over and sees Tiffany walking by. She waves at Jerome, and Sheila turns away and giggles. Are you okay, Sheila? Jake asks. Yeah, I'm fine, she replies. So that was really Mickey's body? Tim asks. Yep, that guy is definitely roasted. Doc checked everything, so you don't have to worry. He won't be coming back, Jerome replies. I've told the captain what's going on so far, and he'll call Bullseye and tell him. Make sure, Mark, that you let the captain know what you found out, Jake says. Okay, I'll go do that right now. I need to give him my report anyway, Mark replies. He is about to leave when Sheila stops him and asks if he will tell her what happened at the hospital. He tells her that he will when he returns from talking to the captain. Okay, I'll be right here when you get back, Sheila says cheerfully. Mark smiles and walks into the police station. Tim, Jerome, and Jake are looking at Sheila with big grins on their faces when she turns around and looks at them. Okay, guys, that's enough, she says. Tim, Jerome, and Jake just laugh. When Mark gets inside, he goes to Dwayne and Sampson's office. He asks them if they found anything on Gina's phone. Yeah, some guy named RJ, the expert replies. That must be the records clerk guy at the IA, Mark thinks. He asks the guys if Gina had anything else on her phone. Yes, she had his address in her phone. I'll give it to you. Sampson writes down RJ's address and hands it to Mark. He thanks him and leaves to go to RJ's place. He arrives at the apartment building and goes up the stairs to knock on the door. No one answers. Mark knocks again, and when no one answers yet again, Mark draws out his gun and turns the door handle. The door is unlocked, and Mark enters the apartment cautiously. Upon entering the apartment, Mark can see that the TV is on, but no one is in the living room. He makes his way to the kitchen, which is clear. He then makes his way down to the only bedroom in the apartment. No one is there when he enters. He checks under the bed and the closet. All is clear. Then, all of a sudden, he starts to hear water coming from the bathroom. It sounds like water spilling onto the floor. Mark makes his way into the bathroom carefully, where he sees water spilling out of the tub. He reaches over to shut off the water and sees at the bottom of the tub a man's body that has been tied up and gagged. This must be RJ, Mark says. He can see a needle off to the side of the toilet and puts together the horrible events that must have taken place. They must have drugged him, tied him up, and put him in the tub. Then they ran the water and let him drown. Poor guy. Mark examines the tub closer. When the water got high enough, it had muffled the sound of the water running. They must have done this to try and cover up the time of death, he says. Mark takes RJ's vitals just to be sure, and confirms what he already knew, that RJ was dead. Mark calls the station, and when the officers arrive, he gives his statement. Doc, the medical examiner, walks up to Mark. Any special instructions? He asks. Yeah. Can you confirm for me how he died? And also if this is RJ from the IA's record department? Mark says. All right, I'll call you as soon as I have the info, Doc replies. Great. I'll be heading back to the station for now. Before Mark can get out the door, however, he bumps into Todd, who is coming in. Mark wonders why Todd is here. He shouldn't have arrived so fast, and why is it only him and no one else from internal affairs? Mark thinks Todd is involved somehow, but he decides to pretend like all is well so he doesn't alert him that he is suspicious. Do you need to talk to me? Mark asks. No, you may go, Todd replies. Okay, Mark says, and continues on his way to the station. When he arrives, he parks Tim's car and heads to the computer experts. Something wrong, Mark? Sampson says. Yeah. I still can't believe Mickey would want to kill Sonya over some video of him acting gay. There has to be more to it than that, Mark replies. That is what we all thought too. Jeff told us to go over everything again. Here, he says as he hands Mark a box with papers, photos, keys, and cell phones. Maybe you might see something we missed. You can use that office over there. Mark takes the box and goes into the other office and starts looking over everything. Mark is feeling more confident because of all the information he has now. He's got a new perspective on this. After all, he seems to be a target now for these guys, though he doesn't know why. Mark starts looking through all the pictures carefully. It's got to be something that Sonya and I both have. Mark calls over to Dwayne and Sampson and tells them to bring him all the files he has been putting together to get information on Sonya and Mickey. The guys come back and put the boxes on the table, then go back to their office. Mark continues going through the boxes of Sonya's pictures. He isn't seeing anything out of the ordinary until he gets to this one picture of Mickey and his family on a picnic. In the picture, he can see the back of a guy with blonde hair, but not the man's face. That picture looks familiar to me, like I've seen it before, he says. Mark goes over to his boxes of evidence and starts looking through the pictures. Then he spots the picture he's looking for. It was almost the same as Sonya's, except it was shot from a different angle. They both have a Fun Day banner in the background. Now he can see the guy. Mark's heart drops when he sees it as Todd, the IA agent. Mark wonders how he could have missed it. He holds up both pictures side by side and can tell they are from the same picnic. In one picture, he can't see Mickey and his family. but you can see Todd being friendly with some of the family. In Sonya's picture, he can see Mickey's family being friendly with Todd, so this just shows that they were definitely at the same place. He decides to go talk with Sonya to see if she can confirm the acquaintance and if she knows anything about Todd. Mark goes to see if his car is safe to drive. It's not ready yet, so he gets the keys to Dwayne's car and then heads to the hospital. Mark arrives and goes to Sonya's room where she is reading in bed. Sonya looks up. "Hi," she says. "Hi," Mark replies. "What's going on?" she asks. "Oh, nothing much. I just thought I would check on you and ask you some questions." "Well, I'm doing great. And what do you want to ask me?" Sonya asks. "You said that you were trying to take Crazy down, but that it was harder than you thought it would be. What did you mean by that?" "I have some pictures and video showing Mickey and Crazy managing some of the drug shipment," Sonya says. "That's great," Mark replies. "Yeah, but it's not enough according to Eric." "Really?" Mark asks. "Yeah," she says. "Mickey and Crazy are the kind of guys that have backup plans for people to take the blame for them without their knowledge. Eric said I needed something bigger." "So did you ever find your something bigger?" Mark says. "Yeah, I did. It could take down Mickey and Crazy. Well, now just Crazy." "What is it?" Mark asks. "That they have a man that helps arrange everything and makes sure that any cops that start sniffing around are eliminated," Sonya says. "Are you sure?" asks Mark. "Oh yes, I was hiding in the air vent when Mickey and his men were having a meeting. He talked about a cop named Cliff getting too close and that he needed to be dealt with along with some informant named Manny." Mark's heart sank. "Oh my God. Do you know the name of the guy Mickey and Crazy would use?" Mark asks. "No, but I know he's in big with the police," Sonya answers. Mark pulls the picture from his inner jacket pocket. "I got this from among your pictures on the computer, and if this is the guy you're talking about, it could explain why you were up for elimination." Mark shows the picture to Sonya. "That's him!" she exclaims. "Do you know who he is?" "Yes, that's Todd from Internal Affairs," Todd says as he moves forward in the room, pointing a gun at Mark and Sonya. "Forgive the intrusion. You two seemed so engrossed in your conversation, so I thought I'd let myself in." "Where are the guards?" Mark asks. "I sent them away. I told them you two were going for a walk and they should go eat lunch until you return. So why don't you get out of that bed and let's go take that walk?" Todd says. "I don't think I'm supposed to move around like that," Sonya says. "Don't worry, it won't bother you for long," Todd replies. "I take it you're going to kill us?" Mark asks. "You, yes, but for her, if I do that, I'll get a death sentence from someone scarier than me. Now move," Todd says. Mark helps Sonya to her feet. They leave the hospital room and head to the elevator. Todd keeps the gun hidden, but still pointed at Mark and Sonya. They enter the elevator and take it all the way to the rooftop. They walk off and look down over the side of the building. "It's a long way down, I know, but it will look more believable if I kill you both this way," Todd says as he gives them a sinister smile. "Wait! I thought you couldn't kill her or else you'd be killed," Mark says. "True, but if I make it look like an accident, I can get rid of the thorns in my side at the same time. It's nothing personal, that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes." Todd cocks the gun and points it at Mark. "Wait!" Mark cries. "I have some questions before I die." "What is it?" Todd asks. Mark squeezes Sonya's hand, then lets go and starts to walk toward Todd slowly. "I'd like to know why you killed Gina, RJ, and Mickey," Mark says. Todd watches Mark cautiously. "Good question. I killed Gina and RJ because they discovered my secret. That's also why Cliff and Manny had to go, but Mickey, I never took him out." "Do you know who did?" Mark asks. "Yes, I do, and it's the reason why I'm staging Sonya's death. This guy is pretty dangerous. Mickey has always been afraid of him," Todd says. "Who is he?" Mark asks. "Sorry, not enough time to answer," Todd says. But just before Todd pulls the trigger, Mark tackles him. They fall to the ground and the gun is knocked out of his hand. They struggle and end up rolling to the edge of the roof. They both make it to their feet before Todd punches Mark in the face. Mark hits him back, and Todd loses his balance. He falls off the edge, but he manages to grab the ledge. Help me up, Todd says. I will, but only so you can face justice, Mark replies. Face justice, Todd scoffs. Oh yes, our wonderful court system. I'll be out soon for good behavior, and then I'll make sure I finish what I started for you two. You're right. A guy like you will never change, Mark says. He begins to loosen his grip on Todd's arm. What are you doing? Todd screams. You can't do this. You're one of the good ones. You can't be bad. What about all the information I know? I'll figure it out, but this is the only way Sonya and I can be safe from you. God forgive me, Mark says as he lets go of Todd's arm. Todd screams as he falls onto the metal fence on the floor below, his body impaling on the sharp, spear-like edges. Definitely dead. Hospital staff runs outside towards Todd's body, and when they look up to try to see what has happened, they see Mark. Sonya walks up to Mark and grabs his hand. You did the right thing. Don't feel bad about it. I crossed a line that I never should have crossed, Mark replies. I know, but you saved more than both of our lives today. I have no doubt that there were others on his hit list, Sonya says. I know you're right, but I still took a life, Mark says. Is this the first time you've killed somebody? Sonya asks. Yes, he answers. I'll tell them everything. I can't ask you to keep such a secret. Mark, even though we're not blood, we're family. You're all that I have. Family always sticks together. I will never abandon you. And I will keep your secret of what really happened to Todd. No one needs to know that you let him die on purpose. I won't lose you, Sonya says. I won't lose you either, little sister, Mark says. Mark and Sonya hug, and as they do, they can hear the police sirens coming toward the hospital. The other cops make their way onto the roof and take Mark's and Sonya's statements about what happened. Sonya is taken back to her hospital room while Mark goes to the station with Jerome. Don't worry about that Dwayne's car, he tells Mark. I'm letting Jake drive that back to the station. I thought with everything that has happened you don't need to be driving now, you might still be in shock. Thanks, man, Mark says. Tell me something, Mark. I know this is off subject, but do you still feel uneasy about Jake? Not anymore. I used to think that he was still trying to get Debbie back, but the captain helped me to see that he isn't interested in anyone but Cindy. I guess I was being paranoid since Bullseye always seems to be trying to get Debbie back, Mark says. Well, I'm glad you see that. Why don't you get some rest before we arrive at the station? You've got 20 minutes, then you can go and give the captain a full report, Jerome says. Thanks, Mark says, and then closes his eyes and goes to sleep. Jerome wakes up Mark once they arrive at the station. They go inside and Jerome heads to his desk while Mark heads up to Jeff's office. So, Mickey had an IA guy, Jeff says. No wonder we could never get him on any of the drugs or bank robbery crimes. Heck, even the extortion case, we couldn't get enough evidence against him. I know. I'm sure Todd had a hand in making sure anything that could implicate Mickey disappeared, Mark says. I'm sure you're right, Jeff replies. I'll just go and fill out the paperwork about what happened at the hospital, Mark says. All right, good job, Jeff replies. Mark heads to his desk. Do you need a hand with your paperwork? Asks Sheila. Sure, that would be great, Mark said. Jerome, Jake, and Tim stop by Mark's desk before leaving for the day. Hey, Mark, you need anything before I go? Jerome asks. No, I'm fine. Sheila's helping me with the paperwork, so I'll be able to leave soon. All right, man. Stay safe. See you tomorrow, Jerome says as he leaves to go home. Well, I'm glad to hear you're okay, Jake says. Thanks, says Mark. Jake leaves and Tim is the last one hanging around Mark's desk. What's up, Tim? Well, I figured since you're so busy with this paperwork, I'd better go by the hospital and check on Sonya for you, Tim says. Mark laughs. All right, man, whatever. I know you like her. Tim, you don't have to try to make something up. You're a good guy. Go ahead. You have my blessing. Thanks, Tim replies, smiling big as he leaves. Mark looks at Sheila. Thanks again for staying and helping me. Sheila smiles just as big as Tim had. No problem, she says. Teehee phone is ringing inside Bullseye's house. His house is average looking, with the usual furniture, but everything is covered in dust and the plants are dead since he had been undercover the last 2 years. Bullseye runs from the bathroom to answer the phone. He is still dripping wet from the shower and trying to wrap the towel around his waist as he picks up. Hello? Hey, Bullseye, Jeff says on the other end. How is it going so far? Bullseye tells Jeff that everything is fine so far. Good, and by the way, Mickey got blown up. I thought I would just let you know. Bullseye is shocked to hear it. Wow, I guess we'll be having a meeting tomorrow morning then? Yes, at 8 o'clock sharp. See you there. Yes, sir, Bullseye says, and then hangs up the phone. He's walking toward his bedroom when he hears his doorbell ring. He walks over and looks out the peephole. To his surprise, he sees Debbie standing at the door. Debbie can hear some muffled sounds coming from the other side of the door. Bullseye, is that you? Yes, Bullseye responds calmly. May I come in? We need to talk, she says. Bullseye opens the door to let her in. She sees Bullseye in a towel and smiles at him as she walks inside. He closes the door behind her, and after, everything feels eerily calm, like the quiet before a storm. In the peaceful middle-class neighborhood where Bullseye lives, the residents are in their homes or out for an evening walk. All is quiet on the street. But on the hillside overlooking the neighborhood, there are several figures looking down at Bullseye's house. Crazy, killer, money, and informer. They see everything that just happened with Debbie and Bullseye. They look at each other and then back at the house. Informer turns to Crazy. Well, I told you this is where the rat is. What do you want to do with him? Crazy has an evil smile on his face as he looks at Bullseye house intensely. Time for us to take out the trash, he says. And what about the woman? Asks Killer. Well, it's not our fault she decided to come over to his house at this time, Crazy replies. I'll call the other guys and tell them to get over here right away. We've got business to take care of, Informer says. Yes, you do that, Crazy says. I can't wait to hear what Bullseye has to say. Crazy laughs psychotically as he stares at Bullseye's house. The end.